In this video you find me out in the woods. I thought I'd try my hand at some woodland photography, but woodland photography with a bit of a difference. I'm going to restrict myself to one lens and one aperture, and in particular I'm restricting myself to f1.4 because I want a very, very shallow depth of field. If you're anything like me and you watch a lot of YouTube, you've probably noticed that every landscape photographer at the moment seems obsessed with getting front to back focus. Even me. I watched back my last 10 videos, and would you believe I mentioned 14 times in 10 videos that I'm doing multiple focus points so that I can stitch the images together later on to ensure everything's in focus. And it got me thinking, do you really need everything in focus? I certainly think having just the subject in focus can create quite a powerful image. So today's all about experimentation. I've got an 85mm f1.4 lens, and I'm out to get as shallow as I can. Let's go. So I've come to Aldrum Wood up at Loch Venica, and if you've been following the channel for a while then you'll know this is a location that I visit pretty much every springtime because it's a beautiful bluebell wood, but it's also just a beautiful wood in its own right. Okay, so as you can hopefully see, we have quite an overcast day. It's quite subdued light. There's a very, very fine mist which is kind of rolling in, and that's given us some separation, which is going to add to the effect that I'm after today, and that is to shoot everything in this woodland with the aperture wide open, and that should, I hope, give us a very narrow depth of field. And I just want to experiment and see how that looks. So my first subject of the morning is this little tree here. We've got this beautiful carpet of brown ferns along the base. We've got the lovely green colour in that little tree there, and I quite like this tree off to the side as well. So I've focused in on the foreground tree. It's I'm shooting at f1.4 as I say, and it's a 85mm lens, so I'm quite tight. I'm pretty much filling the frame with that tree and the base of the tree, so from about there to about there, there and there. I've focused on the nearest part of this tree, and everything else is hopefully going to be thrown into a kind of nice soft focus bokeh type feel. And yeah, I like that. I also like this tree in the background, which has got a much darker background behind it. So once I've taken this shot, I might repeat the process with that tree, and we'll see how they both compare. So first shot, possibly first two shots coming up. Right, I've taken that shot. I took one of this tree where I focused on the nearest leaves, or at least the nearest parts of the moss on those near branches. I flipped the camera over to kind of landscape, I guess you would call it. And I've taken two images. One where again I've focused on this foreground tree, and a second where I've focused on that secondary tree. Both of them are still shot at 1.4, so I'm expecting that what will happen is on the one where I've focused on the far tree, this foreground tree is going to be out of focus, and I'll use that as a kind of framing tool. On the first shot where I've focused on this tree, then the reverse will be the case. I'm expecting all of this foreground foliage here and all the foreground ferns to be out of focus and kind of gradually becoming in focus as we get close to the point at which I've focused. I'm trying to exclude the sky, so I'm aiming down slightly. And yeah, that's essentially the shot, or shots. This is actually quite an interesting way of working. It kind of forces you to look at the scene in a different way. Right, I'm going to move on, see what else we can find. Right, I've come a little bit further around, and again, I'm starting to see some benefits in using a very, very shallow depth of field. This is essentially quite a chaotic scene. There's a lot going on there. Even the ferns alone are pretty quite chaotic. But because I'm restricting the depth of field and also restricting where I'm going to focus, I can really remove a lot of the distraction and simply focus on the part which I want to use to draw the eye in. For example, this tree trunk here. Nothing really out of the ordinary about that. And I would say probably 99 times out of 100 I would walk past that and not even consider it as an image. But because of what we're doing today and because it's that bit closer to me than anything else, I should be able to focus on that and throw the vast majority of the image out of focus. And that might just work under these conditions. I'm going to give it a go. Yeah, that seems to work. Let me show you on the back of the camera. As you can see, I'm focused on this foreground tree. Everything else, apart from the ferns at the base of the tree, is thrown into a kind of soft focus bokeh effect. And it looks as if it's working. Obviously, I think I need to probably find a wee bit more of a dramatic main subject. But as a concept, as a principle, that looks as though it's going to work. So I'm going to now begin to explore the woods. Now that I've got my eye in and I know roughly what I'm looking for, I'm going to go out and look for that sort of thing. So a bit of colour contrast, an interesting subject in terms of its appearance, or, you know, just kind of how it looks. I'm not going to restrict myself to trees either. I've noticed there's a couple of kind of mossy rocks, and the ferns themselves are beautiful, so I'm going to vary it up a little bit. But that's essentially what we're doing today. It's a wee bit different, isn't it? And I really like this fella. There's actually one in the background which looks even slightly more photogenic, but I like this one. And what I like about that is the fact that you have that cluttered background. But I know now that I can throw that out of focus and really make this tree stand out against what would otherwise be a very cluttered background. So I'm going to grab this shot. I might actually move slightly to my left because we have these beautiful ferns again, and that's kind of giving you it's almost like a line of separation. You've got the line of the hill where the tree is, a line of ferns, and then this more cluttered wooded background, which I think I can throw into bokeh. So I'm going to grab that shot from here and we'll see how that looks. Yeah, I like that. That seemed to work. I'm going to see if there's an image with that tree in the background, because I think that looks quite photogenic as well. And then I'm going to go down and see if it's possible to do something with those ferns and then the trees beyond. But yeah, it's different, isn't it? It's something very different. Just now, if I hadn't been focusing on, no pun intended, but if I hadn't been concentrating on deliberately trying to throw things out of focus, I would have probably taken this as a wide shot and tried to include this tree, that tree, and probably the ferns in the background. But I would have struggled because we don't have that degree of separation, and if everything was in focus that would look very, very cluttered, I think. But in working this way, I can throw everything that I'm not interested in out of focus. I don't know if you can hear that, but we have some geese down in Loch Venacher and they're making quite a racket. This is beautiful. Wow, look at this in the back of the camera. Basically what I've done is I've focused on the very edge of this foreground tree, and because I'm relatively close, I'm probably, I don't know, 10-12 feet away from that tree, everything other than the very point that I'm focused on, pretty much everything is out of focus, foreground and background, and I think it looks very dramatic on the camera. That little white box is where I focused, and still shooting at f1.4, and that's given still a 60th of a second shutter speed at ISO 100, and I really like that. Okay, this is the only thing I could really find that might work, and basically because we're again 85mm lens, so we're quite tight, but I've got the bottom of the tree here, the underside of those lower branches, the mountain in the background, and some of these foreground rocks. I've focused on the base of the tree. I have to be very careful, there's actually some long grass you can probably see right there. So when I was using the camera just in ordinary autofocus mode, the camera was actually focusing on those foreground grasses, and the depth of field is so narrow that even that small distance between those grasses and the trees was enough to throw the tree out of focus. So I've had to manually focus on the base of the tree, and that is throwing pretty much everything else apart from whatever's kind of equidistant from here out of focus. Right, what do you make of this? We've got this gnarly old tree here. We've got that stone there, which is kind of roughly equidistant, so that it's pretty much in focus as well, slightly out of focus but not by much. And I've focused here on the base of this trunk, which is coming out, branch, sorry, which is coming out from the trunk. And so that junction there is pretty much in focus. This foreground mound and rock is out of focus, and the background beyond is all out of focus as well. Right, this could possibly be the most cluttered image that I could find. I've been looking around for something that was very, very cluttered in the background, and I've come across this branch here with these still yellow leaves on it, so that's given me a little bit of distinction from the background. And I'm doing the same again. I'm taking a very shallow depth of field, focused on just one of these yellow leaves, and I'm looking to see if we can throw everything else out of focus and make that leaf stand out. This is the great thing about photography, isn't it? I've shot this woodland, I don't know, probably 3-4 times a year for the last 15 years. So I know it very well, but it's the first time I've tried to shoot it with this idea, you know, just shooting it at f1.4 and isolating subjects and stuff like that. And it's amazing how, even though I know the woods very well, I see things differently now because I'm looking for different things. So I'm wondering if there's a shot there. There's these rocks off to the right which are leading down to the base of that tree, and obviously using this technique those rocks will be out of focus but progressively getting in focus, so that will draw the eye in to the base of the tree, and then almost immediately the background will be back out of focus again. Yeah, I think that's got a bit of potential. Now, I'm sure you understand how this works, but essentially, just in case you don't know, the closer a subject is, the closer the focal point is, the bigger the effect that you get when you're trying to throw the background out of focus. So if I shoot something which is, 30 metres away, and even though I'm using 1.4, f1.4, the distance between me and the subject and me in the background is such that the effect is a lot more subtle. So, for instance, if I was to try and photograph this tree here against that background, that tree is quite a bit distant from me, so the effect would be a lot less pronounced. But if I were to photograph this tree, which is a lot closer, that's probably about 10 feet away from me, then the effect would be a lot more noticeable. So you have to take that into account when you're deciding on potential images. So that's it for this video. Hopefully I've given you some ideas for things that you can do to get out there and experiment with shallow depths of field. If you enjoyed the video, then feel free to give us a little thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And yeah, in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers, bye.